23 Charlotte.
His last regular show just over a year ago, we prepared a short history of Betty. It also ran on her 20th anniversary show, and we'd like you to see that.
Who would have known that this bouncing baby girl would grow up to be one of the best-known celebrities in Metrolina? But Betty Daniels, born in Texarkana, Arkansas, to Mr. and Mrs. John B. Daniels, grew up to be just that. And her entry into television could be called the 2 weeks that turned into 23 years. When Turner Feezor married his bride Betty in 1952, she was a home demonstration agent for the 4-H clubs and worked for the North Carolina Extension Service. With her degree in home economics from the University of Tennessee, she frequently appeared on panel shows like RFD Piedmont at WFMY in Greensboro. The WFMY manager asked her to do a cooking show, but Betty and her husband were moving to Charlotte. So the manager wrote Charlotte, and arrangements were made to have Betty replace a hostess on Carolina Cookery at WBTV for just 2 weeks. But viewer response was so good, the 2 weeks turned into 23 years. And the first Betty Feezor show went on the air in March of 1954. Betty's first shows were done out of the old Wilder building, remember? Before the days of videotape and zoom lens cameras. Well, up until just a few years ago, all the Betty Feezor shows were done live, and if she made a slip, it was gone instantly, out over the airwaves and into every viewer's home. Hey, look at this. Some of the old gang was there even then. Can you pick out Jim Patterson, Fred Kirby, Doug Mays? Well, in 1957, Betty and WBTV moved into the new building where they still are today. And over the years, a lot of things changed. Yes, the sets changed. Hairstyles even changed. And of course, clothes really changed. But you know, one thing that never changed after every show, the crew ate all the food. Through the years, Betty's had a lot of famous guests on her show, like E.G. Marshall. But the most recurring guests were her own family. Her 3 children, Betty Cole, John, and Bob. As Betty had her family, she incorporated them into her show, and all the children made appearances as they were growing up. Like any family, they had their private moments and home movies of each other, like this movie of Baby John. Isn't he cute? In your Easter bonnet. But since many of Betty's viewers were raising families of their own and were concerned about the same things as anyone with a growing family, Betty found many family experiences were interesting or helpful to her viewers, like a family cookout like this, for instance. As the children shucked the corn and helped with the table, Betty's narration gave tips on planning menus for family cookouts and the best ways to prepare outdoor food. Good. And Halloween is another occasion that interests any mother. What can you do to make a Halloween costume interesting for several years in a row? Well, Betty's children demonstrate a way to vary that same old costume. Boo, John. And what family hasn't experienced that time-honored and damp ritual of washing the family dog? I wonder who got the wettest here. Spectator Bob. Hi, Bob. Even the Feezor family vacations were interesting to viewers, with tips on good places to take the children. Like this trip to Tweetsie Railroad. In addition to doing her show, Betty made frequent public appearances and addressed different clubs and organizations in the area. She often visited food manufacturing plants and brought back tips for her viewers. She also took part in judging and supervising contests, such as a local bake-off here. And she also won the Woman of the Year award during Salute to Women Who Work Week. And Betty, we were especially proud of you that year. Of course, she was a constant representative and spokesman for the many products with sponsorships on her show. From the beginning of her broadcast career, Betty had her office in her home. where she tested recipes and made up foods in advance for presentation on her show. Whether sewing, cooking, or gardening, Betty tried out the pattern or the recipe at home before passing it on to her viewers. Then, before a show, she'd bundle ingredients and finished product into her car and head for the television studio. Betty Feezor continued to work out of her home, trying out sewing patterns, embroidery, knitting, and do-it-yourself projects. She loads the same basket with her materials for the show, loads up the car, and heads for the television station. Once in the studios, she sets up the various items she'll feature on the show, and with the help of the floor crew and director, then the camera rolls and another Betty Feezor show heads for the Metrolina airways.
Well, as you might imagine, Clyde said earlier, 5,000 television programs, more than 5,000 television programs over the course of Betty's career here at WBTV, long before I was here, long before perhaps many of you were watching. But certainly her professional contribution has been enormous, and we've asked John Edgerton, who is the Vice President, Managing Director of WBTV, and perhaps more importantly, a fellow who's been here most of that time that Betty's was with the station.
Most of it.